Today's lesson is on macromolecules. A macromolecule is a giant molecule. Macro means big and molecule. So these are giant molecules that are composed of many smaller molecules bonded together. Those smaller molecules that are linked together are called monomers. A monomer is a small unit that links together to make a larger molecule called a polymer. Remember, mono means one or single, and poly means many. So here in this diagram, you have one monomer, and if you notice, that same basic structure repeats over and over again to make this larger polymer, right? So individual monomers link together to make polymers. First macromolecule we're going to talk about are carbohydrates. The primary purpose of a carbohydrate is to provide usable energy to living things. Your body breaks down carbohydrates and uses the energy in their chemical bonds to fuel the activities of life. Examples of carbohydrates include sugars, starches, and cellulose. The monomer of a carbohydrate is glucose. Glucose, the chemical formula for glucose, is C6H12O6. This is what a glucose molecule looks like right here. And to make a larger carbohydrate, we're going to take a bunch of these glucose molecules and we're going to link them together. Sugars are a more common name for carbohydrates. There are single sugars that are called monosaccharides. Remember, mono means one. Double sugars are disaccharides. Di means two. And multiple sugars, which are large sugars made of many molecules put together, or polysaccharides. So some examples of sugars are glucose, fructose, which is the sugar that's in fruit, sucrose, which is table sugar, like the sugar that we use to make cakes and to put in like coffee, for example. Those are different types of, they're considered to be simple sugars. Starch is a much larger carbohydrate. This is the carbohydrate that plants use to store energy. So only plants have starch. Starchy vegetables are things like potatoes and carrots, which we eat to obtain sugar. So we get sugar or carbohydrates from consuming these things. But the plant actually uses it as a place to store extra sugar that they've made from photosynthesis. In animals, we use a form of sugar called glycogen as our storage for carbohydrates. So this is specific for animals. It is formed in your muscle and your liver. Your muscles and your liver convert simple sugars that you eat into glycogen with the use of the hormone insulin. And then the glycogen is available by another hormone called glucagon whenever you need energy. So when you eat a meal, the sugar that's floating around in your bloodstream triggers insulin to take that sugar and to turn it into glycogen. And then later on, when that glycogen is stored and you need to use some of that sugar, your body will turn on glucagon and it will take that glycogen and it'll turn it back into sugar in your bloodstream so that your muscles can use that. Plants have an additional carbohydrate that they use for structure. Remember, plants do not have any kind of skeleton. They don't have any bones or anything in them, yet they still are able to stay upright. So the carbohydrate that's responsible for this is called cellulose. Cellulose is a very tough, thick material, and it is found in paper and desks. When they take a tree, for example, and they kind of grind it down, they end up with this pulpy material, and that's called cellulose. Cellulose is also found on like the stem of the bottom of broccoli. It's that really tough part of the broccoli that you don't eat. It's the outer shell of that, because we can't digest cellulose very well. Some animals can. Something like a cow, for example, can digest grass. Grass is mostly made of cellulose, but we would be unable to do that because of the tough nature of that material. The next type of macromolecule is a lipid. Lipids provide long-term energy storage. They are, examples would include fats, oils, and waxes. It is important to note that this is the only macromolecule that is not a polymer. So what does that mean? That means that it is not made of individual subunits linked together, that it is just one big giant molecule. So when we talk about the macromolecules, this is still a macromolecule, but it is not a polymer, okay? So it does not have individual subunits that are linked together to make that one big giant molecule. And you can see here in this next one, this is an image of an actual lipid. So you can see that it is just one big giant molecule, but it's not individual little pieces that are linked together. It's just one really big molecule. So it is a large macromolecule. Other things that lipids do for us besides just energy storage, they are used for insulation for animals that live in very cold climates. They provide water repellency for things that live in the water, like ducks and stuff. They cushion our organs so that when you go for a run or something, your primary organs are not bouncing against each other and getting damaged. They provide structural molecules that are found inside your cells. Lipids also make the steroids that control specific functions of your body, like testosterone and estrogen. They are actually lipids. They are made of similar in composition to fats, like cholesterol. Cholesterol and estrogen and testosterone are very closely related to each other. The third macromolecule that we need to talk about are proteins. Proteins are large, complex molecules. They have many different functions. You do not need to specifically learn this list right here of the functions, but you should know that they are diverse. They have many diverse functions inside the body. They are a very important molecule. The monomer of a protein is an amino acid. Those are the individual little pieces that link together to make the larger molecule called a protein. There are 20 different amino acids, and different combinations of those mix together and make all the different proteins that we have. Proteins are made of these big long chains that get twisted and folded up. So that is the structure of what a protein actually looks like. And this is the structure of a single amino acid, which you saw on our pattern analysis assignment from the other day. And if you have not done that yet, then you're going to see it next week. The last macromolecule we need to talk about are nucleic acids. These are responsible for storing information. The one that you should recognize the most is DNA. We also talk about RNA, so deoxyribonucleic acid or ribonucleic acid. Cells use instructions in that DNA to control the activities of the cell. They also use the instructions to make proteins. So the information here, these are for information, is nucleic acids. The monomer of a nucleic acid is a nucleotide. This is what links together to make those to make the larger polymer, And if you look here, if this is one nucleotide right here, we have a sugar, a phosphate, and a nitrogenous base. And if you look here, you can see there's one nucleotide and another, and they're all linked together in this particular way on each side of the molecule to make that polymer, right? A polymer means many monomers linked together. So those are the 4 macromolecules that you will be responsible for knowing.